Today I'm going to show you how to do an invisible join, and I wish I knew this trick sooner in my crochet journey. This technique is perfect for any project in the round, especially granny squares, and I've used this technique in several of my granny square patterns, and I'll link to those in the description below this video. This technique is to be used when you are finishing off a project in the round. This is not to be used every time you join a round and you're continuing making more rounds. This is for the end when fastening off. Normally when joining a round, what we do is slip stitch into the top of the first stitch made in the round to join. But especially after fastening off, this can leave a really unsightly bump. I'm going to show you what you can do instead. After making the last stitch in the round, I'll just do the last stitch now so you can see exactly what I'm doing. There's my last stitch. What we're going to do is remove our hook and we're going to cut the yarn that's attached to our skein. We are now going to pull the end that we just cut through the last stitch. And at first I was thinking the stitch is going to come undone, but it doesn't. Let's pull this tail out from that last stitch. There we go. It doesn't come undone. And now we have this tail that we're going to join to the other side. Let's put this tail on a yarn needle. With our tail now on our yarn needle, we are going to insert our needle from front to back through the top of the first stitch made in the round. If you started with any chains, we're not working into these chains, we're working into the top of the first stitch, and we're going to put our needle through the front loop and the back loop, from the front to the back. And then pull it all the way through. Now we're going to take our yarn needle and put it through the back loop only of the last stitch that we made in the round. We're going to put it through the back loop of this last stitch from the top to the bottom, and you see that there is another loop that's parallel to this back loop. It's right below it. It's a little shorter, but it's right below it and it's parallel to this back loop. We're going to insert a needle from top to bottom through the back loop of the last stitch and the loop that's parallel to this back loop. So I'm going to insert my needle into this back loop of the last stitch and into the loop that's parallel to it, and then pull my yarn all the way through. Now we have something that resembles a stitch. There's no more unsightly bump, and it really blends in nicely with the rest of the stitches. The last thing to do is to weave in this loose end, but we want to be careful that we don't pull this tail too tightly. I'll show you what happens if we pull it too tightly as we're weaving in our ends. If we pull too tightly, that invisible join gets really small and it becomes unsightly. So we want to keep it resembling a stitch like all the other stitches and keep it nice and loose. And our goal will now be to make this tail hidden and secure while keeping this invisible join nice and loose. We will now weave in our loose end into the backs of stitches. And I like to change directions, which helps make the tails nice and secure while always hiding them in the backs of stitches. And I would do this multiple times, always checking on this invisible join to make sure it's still resembling a stitch and not getting too tight. So keep going into opposite directions, hiding the tail under the stitches. Let's pretend I've done this multiple times and I'm happy with how secure the tail is and how hidden it is and how loose this invisible join is. Once you're happy, remove your yarn needle and cut your yarn. And now you have a beautiful invisible join. You can also use the invisible join technique when you've made your round with half double crochet stitches. We'll do the exact same steps. Cut the yarn that's attached to your skein, pull the tail through your last stitch, put your yarn on a yarn needle, insert your yarn needle from front to back through the top 2 loops of the very first stitch made in the round, and pull the yarn through. Now insert your needle into the back loop only of the last stitch made in the round, as well as the loop that is parallel to it, and pull the yarn all the way through. And the final step is to weave in your loose ends, making them hidden and very, very secure, because we don't want this to come apart. You can also use the invisible join technique with single crochet stitches. You'd follow the exact same steps. And then insert your needle from front to back in the top of the first stitch made in the round, and then through the back loop only of the last stitch and that loop that's parallel to the back loop of the last stitch from top to bottom, and pull it through. And the last step would be to weave in all your loose ends, making them hidden while also very secure. Now you know how to do an invisible join. If you're looking for some fun projects to try out this new technique on, check out the links in the description below this video. Thanks so much for watching, and happy invisible joining!